Hi, I'm Konrad Ejbich, and this is Pro and Con. Today we're going to cover a variety of issues with some international winery owners.
Welcome to the Wine Zone. With me today are Tim Snider on your extreme left. Tim is with Fess Parker Winery.
That's right.
And Tim is the son-in-law of Fess Parker.
Correct.
In the middle is Mireia Torres, and that's from the Torres Winery of Spain, Torres Wineries of Spain, California, and also Chile. And on my extreme right is Jerome Abeille from Mont-Redon in Chateauneuf du Pape. So I noticed that you've each got a wine in front of you. Well, I got a wine in front of me here too. And the wine is made from Rhone varieties. And I want to ask you, if I could, Tim, first,
Yes.
what are you drinking today?
I have a glass of our Viognier today.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. And Mireia?
I have a glass of wine from Priorato, and it has been done, it's called Salmons, and has been done with the majority Carignana, and it has also Garnacha and a little bit of Syrah.
Okay, and it's kind of typical to ask, or obvious to ask you what you're drinking, because you're from the Rhone, and it's a Rhone variety. So tell me what you're drinking and what's in it.
I am drinking a Chateauneuf du Pape Red 2009, so mostly based on Grenache as well, Syrah and Mourvedre.
Fantastic, thank you. And so tell me, I know why you grow Rhone varietals, because you have for 1,000 years, Jerome. But tell me, Mireia, why you grow Rhone varietals. Are they, to some degree, indigenous in Spain?
Well, yes, you know, the frontiers between France and Spain has changed along the years many times, no? And of course, there is a big change of culture and many other things about the history. Nowadays, Garnacha and Carignana, for instance, are varieties that are planted in many places in Spain, not only in Catalonia, and they are considered also as original varieties from Spain. Mourvedre is also planted a lot in the south of Spain, for instance.
Where you call it monastrell?
Yes, we call it monastrell, and also in the coast of the Mediterranean Sea. And the Syrah is perhaps a variety that was not so common in the past, but has been planted the last 15 years.
In the last 15
and it works very well in regions that are quite dry, not really near the coast, because the humidity is not so good for the maturity of this variety.
Right. Yeah, I understand. And Tim, you live in an area that's not terribly humid, is it?
Correct. Yeah. Very dry. Mostly because of our proximity to the ocean. We have consistent winds blowing through, so keeps the humidity
right.
in check.
You're drinking a Viognier.
Yes.
Viognier is it's a variety that's I would say relatively new everywhere in the world except in the Côte d'Ivoire. And it's very, very successful where you are.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of interest in it. People who are looking for different types of white wines, and I think like Viognier, when they have an opportunity to try it, has nice palate weight. It's generous with the fruit component to it, but also, if grown properly, can still retain bright and fresh acidity. And I think that's what consumers these days are really seeking.
Right. In general, I'm going to ask this of all three of you. We'll start with you, Tim. Where is it the most difficult to sell your wine?
Oh gosh, the most difficult.
Anywhere in the world, because you do sell your wine all around the world.
We do. I think I guess I'd answer it this way. I think the most difficult places for us to sell our wines are places that are not really familiar with what's going on in Santa Barbara County of California specifically. So there's a lot of education that continues beyond, say, Napa. A lot of people in Napa.
Oregon?
Oregon. Places with indigenous, successful indigenous wine culture and businesses. It's a little difficult, because obviously people are a little protectionist sometimes.
Sure. And where's your best market?
Well, the best market, of course, is at home. You know,
Locally, but outside of California.
Well, if we get outside the U.S., I would say our two best markets are really in Scandinavia. Denmark is a great market for us, and then up here in Canada, we do quite well.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's
Alberta because it's privatized, but spreading out into places like here in BC as well.
Right, Mireia, where's it most difficult to sell your wine?
I would say perhaps in France.
Okay, that's clear. That's clear. I can
It's very
understand
difficult to sell wine there.
Yeah, and where's your biggest market outside of Spain for Spanish wine? Outside of California for California wine, and outside of Chile for Chile?
Well, it
wine?
depends a little bit on the type of wines, because in Torres we work with different appellations and different varieties. But I would say that our principal markets are perhaps Mexico, also England, Finland, Denmark, and Canada is also a quite big market.
Quite an important market. I'm often surprised
China,
that
of course, sorry.
China, of course, growing, very, very rapidly growing market.
Mm-hmm.
I'm often surprised at how important the Canadian market is to a lot of people, but that's great. That's great. 'Cause
Fantastic consumers out here.
Well, that's the point. I mean, it bodes well for us because we love good wines, and that means that you'll keep sending them here.
Yes.
Right? Jerome, where's your most difficult market? And
Probably the market where we are most difficult, it's the Japan, maybe. Because Chateauneuf Rhone wines, sometimes they said it's too strong for them, with the alcohol level. I think
Right.
Burgundy went from Beaujolais and kind of Bordeaux, they love it. Chateauneuf du Pape, Rhone wines with Grenache and alcohol, sometimes for them it's too strong. Sometimes.
And outside of Chateauneuf, outside of the Rhone, where's your best market?
The best market for us is Sweden.
Sweden.
United States, Switzerland, and England as well. And
No.
Canada is going very well as well,
No.
especially in Quebec.
Yeah, one of the things I find that's curious is that in each case, your best markets are cold countries.
Yes.
And that's perhaps because you come from hot countries, hot areas, hot regions, and I think perhaps those people get a little taste of the heat in your wine, the taste of the warmth. When you smell a wine, you can tell right away if it comes from a warm country or a cool country. And I think that smelling a wine from a warm country is warming inside.
Exactly. But then wines with Grenache, sometimes it's with Soubise always kind of very friendly wine and approachable because it's round, that's something very easy. For example, if we speak about the entry level for us, the Côte du Rhône, that's something very friendly. You can just drink it by the aperitif, by itself, with charcuterie, of easy things.
Right. Now, the fact I come back to the fact that you're all warm regions. Does this concern you in terms of climate change? What are you doing, each of you? What are you doing to cope with the changes that are going on? And how are you preparing for the future when it's going to keep getting hotter? Mireia, what do you do?
Well, I could speak during 1 hour about this because my father is a person that is really concerned with the climate change. And the last 15 years he has done a lot of things, or we have done a lot of things in the winery. We have done research also. We have been the leaders of a project of research in collaboration with 26 companies, majority wineries from the rest of Spain, also analyzing the climate change and looking how it can affect our wines and what can we do in terms of viticulture and enology. We have done also a big investments in the winery in terms of to get more wind energy, for instance, and also we have 12,000 square meters of photovoltaic panels in the winery. We have isolated the majority of the tanks that we have outside in the winery to reduce the consumption of frigories in summer. We have built the last wineries chilled drilled inside the mountains to reduce the consumption of frigories in summer. We have also planted many hectares of vineyards in a higher altitude. For instance, in the Pyrenees, we have more than 100 hectares of vineyards planted at 900 meters of altitude.
Right. And Jerome, how about yourself?
Just to give you an idea for Chateauneuf du Pape, how the global warming affected us, we used to start the harvest 20 years ago, end of September, beginning of October, now it's end of August. In Chateauneuf du Pape, we have 13 different grape varieties, 8 reds. So we mostly use, as we said, Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre, but we try to do some personal experimentation to see which ones will be the early ripener, to reach the full maturity, for example, at 12.5, 13 maximum. Because if we want to wait to reach the full maturity of Grenache, sometimes we have to wait 15 plus something. And we have to find the balance and average with the blendings. That's why we experiment in Mont-Redon, this kind of planting grapes allowed by the appellation Chateauneuf du Pape to see which ones will be qualitative and early ripener.
Okay.
With not too much alcohol, like 13 degrees maximum.
Right. Tim, how about yourself?
It's interesting you bring this up. My brother-in-law Eli and I have been looking at this, and there's been some studies just released in the last week or so looking specifically at global warming effects forecasting for through year 2050. So a bit of a window there. Interestingly, while Santa Barbara is a bit of a beach town, the growing region is actually, we're a cooler to colder growing region because of our proximity to the ocean. So the majority of the fruit that we work with from our ranches is within about 20 to 25 miles of the coast. The latest forecasting that came out showed that we would probably be in the area, they called it the green zone, which meant that where our vineyards are planted would still be suitable for grape growing even in 2050. So we're fortunate with that. That being said, I think rather than looking at necessarily doing the research that Torres is doing or the blending research that Mont-Redon is doing, what we're looking at instead is in California as an industry and as a political entity is looking at things like carbon emission caps and those types of restrictions on the wineries to try to reduce the further impact on greenhouse effect and on global warming.
So you're hoping to slow down the climate change in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really where it's coming from. How much is that going to affect? Will our industry in California affect it? Not sure. But it's certainly a step, I think, in the right direction.
Just by making it an issue, you make other companies, other industries aware of it, and that helps to get everybody on board.
Well, it's across industries. It's not unique to the wine business either. Manufacturing in California is becoming more regulated with it. So I think that's good. It's definitely a step in the right direction on that front. And then we do take a little bit of comfort in the fact that our vineyards are so close to the ocean. So I think that there hopefully will continue to be a mitigating effect because of that.
Right. Now, I read that study too, and frankly, even as I read the headline, changes that are coming between now and 2050, even before opening it up and talking about climate change, it brought to my mind another aspect completely of what's going to happen in the next 20 to 50 years, and that is the incursion of civilization, of cities, of suburbs onto vineyard space. I mean, are you feeling that at this point, Tim?
In California, generally, yes. It's both. It's that, and it's also in the Central Valley. Not so much coastal regions. Not in Santa Barbara so much. But if you look at other regions in California, you have decisions being made with land use. Some of it is development, housing development, but also some of it is other agricultural products that maybe you can get more than one harvest a year, or that are more lucrative with their harvest versus wine grapes. So
replacing the vineyards with some other agricultural product.
Correct, and so that's happening in the interior of California more and more, which is giving us some interesting supply demand dynamics in the state. It's not so much affecting us in California, in Santa Barbara, but on a larger basis in California.
Right here in the Niagara Peninsula, in Prince Edward County, and then also in Lake Erie North Shore, the three major regions in Ontario. What we're finding is that the agricultural land is pretty, it's quiet, it's calm, and people want to retire into the. They want to be able to see a vineyard out their back window. Of course, they get upset when they hear bird bangers or they smell pesticides or whatever in the air. I mean, how is that affecting you in Spain? Spain's got a huge population.
Yes, well, we are now 44 million people, but it's true that now with the crisis, perhaps the construction has diminished.
People can't afford to move in now, you're saying?
Yes, well, and nowadays perhaps the people is more, I think that these last 5 years is more conscious about the importance to preserve all this nature and all these vineyards around Barcelona, because for instance the appellation of origin Penedes is in the surroundings of Barcelona, no? And perhaps now there is they are trying to promote more the wine tourism in order to respect and to organize better all this nature, no? And by the other side, I also forgot before to tell you that we are also finishing the calculation of the carbon footprint in the majority of the products of Torres, and also that we are also doing a big research with ancestral Catalan varieties, trying to recover all these varieties that are really very adapt to our climate for the future.
Excellent, excellent. Now, Jerome, I've been to France many times, and what I often see are little tiny squished up villages, and all around them are vineyards, and I never understand why it is that the population continues to grow and yet it doesn't spread into the vineyards. Are you finding a change in that now?
I think we live in Provence, so that's quite famous, and for tourism. I think appellation like Côte du Rhône sometimes might be affected, because it's kind of affordable plots, and sometimes the pressure with the houses, as you said, the development of the tourism can affect us a little bit. But then, for example, an appellation like Chateauneuf du Pape, it's very well, I think, protected, because it's a kind of the very famous wines in France, so we are not really affected. And then I think people, wine growers, I think in France are quite strong. That's the family who own the vineyards of Côte du Rhône. And they don't really want, to see buildings or apartments in their plots. That's why for the moment I think we protect, but sometimes we cannot. But I think for the moment it's still very well protected.
Sure.
For the moment.
Sure. One of the things that I'm finding as a Canadian, we have wines from all over the world coming in to Canada. We're actually, because we're a monopoly controlled market, the government feels they have to treat every region equally, so they bring in wines from very unusual places, whether it's Moldova or Romania or Albania or Cyprus, etc., etc. So we get to taste a wider variety of wines, I think, than you would in your region, than you would in your region, you would in your region. And one of the things that I personally am experiencing, and I want you to talk about this, is more of a globalization of flavors. Like wines from more places are tasting similar. And so are we actually experiencing a globalization of flavors, or is it because, and is the result of that we're dumbing down the ability of wine drinkers to taste a variety? Are we narrowing the scope of what's available for them? Jerome, you start.
I think we fight like every day, to protect our knowledge, terroir, family history, things like that. So, and I think the French people is not maybe the perfect example for that, because we are very traditional. So in France, so I don't know exactly the percentage of wines from California, for example, Spain we sell in France, but I think it's very, very small. French people are very, very traditional, so we are very, I think that the Spanish people is the same, very attracted by the true taste, the true history, traditional things. So I think we are in France, maybe kind of all country in Europe, very well. We
very protective of your indigenous flavors. How do you get?
Well, I think there's two things that are going on, within the question that you're asking. The first is, I think I agree with what Jerome's saying, in that when you're talking about superior growing regions and wine producing regions with some sort of heritage, and heritage could be hundreds of years, like like Chateauneuf du Pape, or maybe even a heritage that's been developed for 25 to 35, 40 years, like what we have. In the superior growing regions, I think you do have a sense of place still, and from all around the world. So that's one. The second part of it is, it seems to me that in other growing regions, there's been an overall increase in quality. There's not as much bad wine out there in the world today, which is probably a good thing. And so when you look at kind of the more sort of mass produced or targeted to a broader audience, more of a mass audience, I think that the overall quality from other regions has improved, which may be leading to this idea of homogenization. You don't have these wines that are standing out that maybe really aren't well made. Most people are making wines that are well made no matter where they're coming from today.
Right.
Well, I agree with him. I think that nowadays the wineries, they have to produce wines that a little bit they transmit the origin, the terroir, with this variety and the climate. But by the other side also, we are in a lower market, and many wineries we have to export to sell the wines. So we have also to adapt a little bit. Also sometimes the style of the wines to the consumer demand. Perhaps 20 years ago, the consumer demand was a little bit different from nowadays, and I see that this has happened. But by the other side, we always have to try to respect the style of our origins and our tradition. So we have to get the balance between these two things.
Right. Thank you for listening. Come back again when we have more interesting guests right here in the Wine Zone. Cheers.